Good evening. This is Donovan Dread, your host on Monster Myth, where we explore the mysteries and folklore that keep us up at night. Today, we're venturing into the deep woods of West Virginia, where legends and lore are as much a part of the landscape as the rolling hills and deep valleys. We're joined by a man whose life has been intertwined with these woods, a man who has seen the beauty and the mystery they hold. Our guest tonight, Sam, is a local through and through. He grew up on the edge of the Monongahela National Forest, a place that has been his playground, his workplace, his refuge. A handyman by trade, Sam's real passion lies in the heart of the forest. A hiker, a lover of wildlife, a man who knows these woods like the back of his hand. But today, Sam isn't here to share just another tale of a bear sighting or a close encounter with a bobcat. No, Sam joins us to share an encounter of an entirely different kind. He's here to tell us about a day when he came face to face with a creature of legend, a being that's not found in any wildlife guide or hiking manual. Sam also has a photo and a video to share of his encounter. So, grab a cup of your favorite brew, settle into your seats, and let's prepare to journey into the unknown with Sam. Welcome to another intriguing episode of Monster Myth. Sam, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate that you are willing to share your experience with us.
I appreciate the invite, Donovan. I won't lie. It's a little bit strange talking about this, even on a show like Monster Myth. But if sharing my experience can help others understand what might be out there or make someone else feel less alone if they've seen something similar, well, I reckon it's worth it. So thanks for giving me this platform.
Sam, the courage it takes to come forward with a story like yours is not lost on us. This platform was created for folks like you, to give a voice to the unexplained, to the mysterious, and to those experiences that just don't fit neatly into the world as we know it. We're all about seeking understanding, even when it challenges what we think we know. So, truly, thank you for being here and for your willingness to share. Before we dive into your extraordinary encounter, I'd love for our listeners to get to know you a bit better. After all, understanding the person behind the story often brings a deeper layer of understanding to the tale itself. So, Sam, could you tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, what your life in West Virginia has been like, and perhaps how your relationship with the great outdoors began?
Sure thing. Well, as I mentioned, I'm born and bred here, right in West Virginia. I grew up in a little town. My dad, he was a logger, a man who knew trees better than the back of his hand. He'd come home every day smelling like pine and sawdust. My mom, she was the heart of our community. She ran a local diner, a place where folks would gather around for food, and all the local gossip you could ever need. My older brother Jake, well, he was my hero growing up. It was Jake who took me on my first hike. It was Jake who taught me how to track animals, how to spot a deer trail, how to tell a harmless plant from a poisonous one. He taught me to respect the woods, to see it not just as a backdrop to our lives, but as a living, breathing entity. I reckon I took my first steps on a forest trail, long before I walked our town streets. I spent most of my life here, lived in other places for a bit that I always ended up back home. Over the years, I've worked a bit of everything. Did carpentry for a while, learned to work with my hands, shape wood, fix things, spent some time in the local garage, even owned it for a spell. I had grease under my nails for years. I learned the ins and outs of engines, but no matter what I did to pay the bills, I always found my way back to the woods. It's a part of me, you know? It's in my blood. I've seen a fair share of wildlife. Bears lumbering through the undergrowth, coyotes, bobcats. The woods are full of life and full of creatures going about their lives. But the thing I saw that day, it wasn't like anything I've ever seen. It was different, something that didn't fit any of the categories I've learned of stories that I've heard. It was something else entirely.
Sam, your deep-rooted connection to these woods, your respect for the natural world. It's evident in every word you've just shared. It paints a picture of a man who's at home in the wilderness, familiar with its rhythms and inhabitants. It's quite clear that what you experienced was far beyond the norm for you. I can only imagine the impact it must have had, and continues to have. Now, let's move on to the day in question. We're all keen to understand more about this encounter. Can you describe the day it happened? What led you to be in that particular place at that time? And in as much detail as you can.
Well, it was a Saturday. I had a long week, a lot of work at the garage, and I was itching to hit the trails and clear my head. It was a perfect day for a hike. The sun was out, it wasn't too hot. I decided to head out towards the Seneca Rocks. It's one of my favorite spots. They got these amazing trails, a bit tricky, but it's a real treat for the eyes. So I packed up some essentials, I got my hiking boots, headed out with my old trusty hound Doomer. We'd been on the trail for about 30 minutes, and we stopped for a bite to eat. After that, we ventured a bit off the marked trail, which I admit I tend to do quite a bit. Always looking for something new, you know. It was then, in a quiet, secluded part of the woods that, well, that's how I ran into the thing.
The vivid picture you paint really sets the stage for what comes next. It sounds like a day like any other, just a man and his faithful dog out enjoying the beauty of nature. That makes what follows all the more jarring. Before we get into the actual encounter, could you share around what time of year and time of day this was?
Sure. It was early October in 2018. I had a lot on my plate that week, and Saturday morning had been filled up with chores and errands. But I didn't want to miss out on a day in the woods, even if it meant starting my hike in the afternoon. The Seneca Rocks trails, they're familiar to me. I knew I could navigate them, even if I got back a bit later than usual. Plus, there's something peaceful about the woods as the day starts winding down. That's why I set out later than I usually would.
Before we get into the moment when you came across the creature, I'd like to ask, was there anything unusual leading up to the encounter? Any odd sounds, smells, or sights that caught your attention or seemed out of place? Anything that, looking back, might have been a precursor to your encounter?
Well, the thing is, Donovan, there was something now that I look back at it. I remember there was this stillness. It's kind of like hard to explain, but the woods were quiet. Not just normal quiet, but the kind of quiet that you feel deep in your bone, you know? Even Boomer seemed on edge. He kept sniffing the air and growling, and the hair on the back of his neck was standing up. There was also this strange smell, like a mix of wet earth and a little bit metallic almost, and something musky. I didn't really pay much attention to it at first, but I thought it might be like a bobcat or a bear nearby. But after what I saw, I can't help but wonder if it was connected.
Experienced hikers like you know that a change in the natural rhythm of the woods is often a sign that something's amiss. Now let's get into the heart of your experience. I can tell this isn't an easy story for you to recount, but take us back to that moment. Walk us through what happened when you first saw this creature. What were the first signs that you were about to have an encounter unlike any other? And in as much detail as you can, describe what it was like coming face to face with this being.
So, I was walking along. Boomer was sniffing around and acting all jittery. I remember thinking I might have stumbled across some animal's territory. I was ready to pull back if I needed to. Just then, I heard this rustling sound, like big wings flapping. I didn't know what it was. My heart started racing, but I figured it was just like a bird or an owl or a hawk or something like that. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something moving in the trees ahead. It was too big to be a bird. Boomer started growling something fierce, backing up towards me. That's when I knew we weren't dealing with your average forest critter. I squinted, and that's when I saw it. This thing was massive, taller than me, at least 6 feet tall. It was covered in these black feathers, but its body, it was almost human-like. It had these large leathery wings folded at its side. Craziest thing was its eyes. It had these large glowing red eyes, but no face that I could make out. It was just standing there in the clearing, like it was sizing me up. I tell you, I've been in these woods all my life. I ain't never seen anything like that. It felt like time stood still when I was looking at it. I mustered up every ounce of courage I had. I grabbed Boomer's collar and backed away slowly. I didn't take my eyes off that thing till I was good and far away. It didn't pursue or anything. It just stood there watching us. I couldn't take my eyes off this thing, and I was trying to back up at the same time while holding on to Boomer.
Sam, that's a chilling encounter to say the least. The way you describe the creature, its size, the wings, those glowing red eyes, it's unlike anything most of us could even begin to imagine. And to find yourself so close to it, in the dimming forest light, I can hardly begin to imagine how you must have felt. Before we get to the rest of the encounter, let's share this picture with the audience. Now we will get to the video in a minute because you also recorded a video on your phone as you were walking away, and I must say it is quite intense. Now for our audience. We had to digitally enhance this photo we are showing you as it was too dark. Okay, Sam, tell me what I'm looking at here.
Sure thing. Like I said, it was taken in a rush, but you can see it there in that little bit of clearing, just standing there with its red eyes. It was terrifying, honestly.
Now let's share this intense video with our audience. Sam took this as he was backing away from the situation.
Oh, Jesus, what the hell is that? Come on, Bummer. Come on, boy. Back away. God, what in the hell is that thing? Come on, boy. Come on.
So tell me, in that moment, staring into those red eyes, what was going through your mind? What was your first instinct? And how did you keep your composure?
I gotta tell you, Donovan, in that moment, a million things were running through my head. Fear, for sure. I've come face to face with bears, even a rattler once, but nothing compared to this. It felt so strange, like I was looking at something that wasn't supposed to exist. Part of me was in disbelief, thinking my eyes were playing tricks on me, but then there was this deep, primal part of me that just knew this thing was real. But I was staring at something truly evil. And if I'm being completely honest, there's a little bit of fascination there too. Like, despite me being terrified, I was in awe of this thing. Of their just raw strangeness of it. It looked like it walked straight out of a legend or something. But don't get me wrong, I wasn't about to stick around and study it. Getting myself and Boomer to safety was my top priority.
Sam, your account is nothing short of riveting. You bring us right into the heart of that extraordinary moment, when fear and fascination collide. I can imagine the intensity of the encounter, the mixed emotions you must have been feeling, all while keeping your survival instincts sharp. Now you mentioned that the creature didn't pursue you. That in itself is intriguing. Could you tell us more about what happened as you began to back away? Did the creature simply watch, or did it show any signs of aggression? Were there any changes in its behavior?
Well, that's the part that still gets me. It didn't move. It didn't make a sound. It just watched us. Its eyes tracked us as we moved back. There was no sign of aggression, which was a little unsettling in its own way. It was like we were on its turf and it knew it. I remember gripping Boomer's collar so tight I could feel him shaking under my hand. I kept my eyes on that creature, backing away slowly and just steady, not wanting to spook it into any action. Every sound, every rustle of the leaves had me on edge. I couldn't afford to turn my back on it. The farther we got back, the more those red eyes seemed to glow. But it just stood there, silent and unmoving. And when we were finally far enough away that I could barely make it out through the trees, I finally turned and made a beeline back towards the trail. I couldn't hear any movement. I didn't get the sense that it was following me or anything. But the way it watched us, it was like it was letting us go. Or maybe it just wasn't interested in me. I don't know. All I know is that by the time we got back to the trail, my heart was pounding. And I was about ready to pass out from the adrenaline. But I knew we had to keep moving. I had to get as far away as possible.
Your description of this creature with its glowing red eyes, large wings, and human-like form, it's eerily similar to a creature that's been reported numerous times in West Virginia, the Mothman. I'm sure you've heard the stories, being a native West Virginian. Many describe it just as you have. What are your thoughts? Could what you saw have been the infamous Mothman?
I'll be honest with you. Before this encounter, I was one of those folks who just listened to the Mothman tales with the grain of salt. I figured they were just stories, local folklore, you know? I mean, a man-sized winged creature with glowing red eyes. It sounds like something straight out of a comic book. But after what I saw that day, I just can't dismiss it anymore. What I saw in those woods was real, man. It was there, right in front of me. And its description matches up pretty close with these Mothman tales. I can't sit here and tell you with absolute certainty that what I saw was the Mothman. But what I can say is that it got me thinking. It's got me questioning. And it's opened my mind to the possibilities I never would have considered before. All I know for sure is that there's something out there in those woods that's beyond my understanding. I don't know. Maybe it's a Mothman, I can't say. But I know it's something unexplainable. And it's made me look at those old tales in a whole new light.
I can only imagine, Sam, how such an experience could shift your perspective on those local legends. It's one thing to hear a story, and quite another to encounter something that forces you to question what you thought you knew. It's a testament to the power and mystery of the natural world around us. I'm curious about the aftermath. How were the days and weeks following this encounter? Did you return to the woods? Did you tell anyone about what you saw? Could you go back to your daily life as if nothing happened?
Well, Donovan, it wasn't easy, I'll tell you that much. For the first few days, I was in sort of a daze. I kept replaying that encounter over and over in my mind. I couldn't shake off that image of those red eyes, that massive figure in the woods. I didn't go out hiking for a good while after that. I just couldn't bring myself to it. I did tell a few people, close friends, family. Some were skeptical, of course, as is to be expected, but others, especially those who lived there long enough and heard those old stories, they didn't dismiss it outright. It was actually my brother who first mentioned the Mothman legends to me. He thought maybe there was a connection. As for daily life, well, it's funny how the human mind adapts, you know. I did eventually get back to my usual routine. I had to make a living after all, but I'll admit, something had changed. I saw the world a little different. The woods especially felt different. There was a sense of wonder, but also a new respect. Maybe even a little bit of fear. Because I'd seen what could be lurking out there. And once you've seen something like that, well, you can't really go back to the way that things were.
That's an incredibly profound statement, Sam. Once we experience something that pushes the boundaries of what we thought we knew, it's impossible to return to our previous state of ignorance. The world just isn't the same anymore. I want to thank you for sharing your experience with us, Sam. It's not easy to open up about something so out of the ordinary, especially when you run the risk of skepticism or even ridicule. Your courage is commendable. For my final question, I'd like to ask, how has this experience influenced your view on the unknown, the unexplained phenomena that exist around us? Have you developed a curiosity to learn more, or perhaps a desire to avoid such mysteries altogether?
That's a great question. I think if anything, this experience has made me more open to the unknown. I lived my whole life believing I knew the woods. that I understood the world around me. But that day, it shook up everything I thought I knew. It made me realize there's so much that we don't understand, so much we can't explain, and while that can be a little intimidating, it's also quite fascinating. I think there's a beauty in the unknown, a sense of wonder, I guess. The world is definitely a lot bigger and stranger than what I thought. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm about to go hunting for cryptids or start studying the paranormal, but I am more open-minded now, more curious. I've learned to question, to not take things at face value. As for the woods, they're still my home. I still love hiking. I still feel at peace among the trees. Yes, I'm a little more cautious now, a little more aware, but I don't let that day take away the joy that I find in nature.
Well, folks, there you have it. A first-hand account of an encounter that is as fascinating as it is chilling. Sam, I want to thank you again for sharing your story with us, and for reminding us of the beauty and mystery that lies in the unknown. Your courage and curiosity are truly inspiring. As we close this episode, I can't help but reflect on the many facets of our world that remain unexplored, the many creatures that may yet live undiscovered among us. Sam's story is a testament to the boundless wonder that is our planet, a vivid reminder that the woods, the ocean, the sky, they're all full of stories waiting to be told, mysteries waiting to be unraveled. Whether it's a myth, a monster, or an undiscovered species, one thing is clear: our world is more incredible and more mysterious than we can ever truly comprehend. And it's stories like Sam's that ignite our curiosity, that drive us to ask questions, to seek answers, and to venture into the unknown. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Stay curious, stay open, and remember, you never know when you might encounter your own monster myth. Until next time, this is Donovan Dread, signing off. Good night, everyone.